Hey. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wellness Policy for June 2024. We're back. It's me, Wei Ting, here with my good friends Air Jordan and Neil Flanagan. Happy to see you guys as always. It's only once a month that we really kind of get to see each other. Although, Neil, I've seen plenty of you, so I guess
Too much, maybe.
too much almost at this point. But I always a happy occasion. How are you guys doing this month?
Feeling pretty good. Yeah, man. Summertime. I do you like being outside way when it's warm?
I'm loving it. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's good. I
More
feel
so
better.
now than when I was younger. Like when I was a teenager, I was very much like an indoor like hermit. You know, I was like very like pale. Didn't really see any point, I guess, of being outside. But as an adult, I've really grown to like just appreciate what it does for you and the balance that I think it brings. Because I mean, especially in Canada during the winters, we don't get to go outside too often.
How do you feel about splash pads?
Like adult splash pads or for kids? What do you mean? What are splash pads?
Like, I mean, I think there's many kinds of splash pads. Like there's right where I live, they have the thing where randomly shoots out of the ground,
Right.
like 15 feet in the air. Pretty decent splash pad for that. But then also, you got more of like a play place area, but with water shooting every which way.
I think they're wonderful. They're wonderful features. They're probably filthy as hell when you really think about it. You know,
That's
like
okay.
where's that water coming from? Where's it going? But
When I used to go to Bonnaroo, like basically everyone showered in this giant mushroom where water would come from all sides of the head of the mushroom. And by Saturday, it was reddish brown water recycling. But like that's okay. Then you get home on Monday and you shower.
yeah,
Okay. Dude wipes.
No,
yeah,
Oh.
no.
yeah. I mean, I love that you like it. You know, maybe not so much for me, but is it for you, Neil Flanagan? That's the big question. Splash pads.
I didn't know what they were until Jordan just explained. I had in my head an image of, those sort of plastic sheets that water runs on and you sort of take a run up and then do a big slide.
Oh, like Crocodile Mile.
Yeah, I like those.
Those are
But
great.
and I'm doing well, although I'm going to be a grumpy old geezer about the weather because it's Ireland. It's the 18th of June. It's like 2 days from technical summer and it's 13 degrees. It's been raining. It's been dull. It's not good. It's supposed to improve though later this week.
Sorry about that.
Feel my
Come
pain.
over. I would suggest traveling, but maybe don't tempt your fate with international travel just yet. Hey, we're not here to talk about the weather nor splash pads. What are we here to talk about, Jordan?
We are here to talk about the concept of growth mindset. We have a special guest who I can introduce now. Her name is Chardelle Moore. And I am going to assume, as you bring her in way, that she is pro splash pad. Chardelle, please unmute yourself. There we go.
Hey guys,
We need to know, Chardelle, at the top. Splash pads, how do we feel?
I love it.
Of course, who wouldn't?
I mean, who wouldn't? It's such a little vibe.
Yes.
Well, when
a
was the last
little
time you
vibe.
went you enjoyed a splash pad specifically?
I can't even remember. I really can't, to be honest.
So do you really love it? Okay, if you can't even
Yeah,
remember, I'm
well,
calling
this
bullshit.
is the thing. It's like this. I feel like then my brain is going to start to go into a whole nother frequency. Like, regardless, you know what love is when you feel it. So it can be 1 year, 2 years, 15 years. It's still the same vibe, King. It's still the
Great.
same vibe.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Good answer.
True.
So let me introduce Chardelle Moore. How did I come to know her? A few years ago, I worked at a wrestling company called Ring of Honor, and Chardelle was working for a local TV station, and we were in the same building. And every now and then, the management of the building would be like, you know what? All these working employees that come in so loyally every day, maybe we'll give them an omelet because it's a Friday. So every now and then, I'd meet Chardelle in line to get something like an omelet. And every time that would happen, she seemed and was, from my perspective, the most vibrant person in the room. So I was consistently drawn to her. She was someone that infused life into think any situation that she brings to. We had a vibe, continued to remain friends. I left that company, she left her company, have been in touch ever since. And Chardelle is someone, when I think of the concept of growth mindset, Chardelle personifies this based on who she is, what she's done, I'm sure what she's continuing to do. And I'm very excited to introduce Chardelle to our audience and to let her not only share some of her story today, but share some of her mindset, share some of her experiences, how she orients to herself in the world. And because from my perspective, it's working. So thank you for being here, Chardelle.
Oh my gosh. And the introduction, Jordan, so amazing. That's like phenomenal.
You're like a capital P professional. So like that was okay?
That was amazing. It was so real. But that's what I love about you, because you have such a beautiful spirit.
Thank you. Let me start with this. So you were on like the local news for many years, most days. And sometimes doing traffic, sometimes doing some entertainment segments. I'm assuming sometimes maybe weather. You seem to kind of be like the switchblade of the Swiss Army knife. Is what I'm looking for of that TV station. How real could you be?
Well, this is the thing. Before I started Motivational Moore, I was a lifestyle host, traffic reporter, and creative producer at the Fox affiliate in Baltimore, right? But I truly was always myself. I feel like at the end of the day, you have to stay true to your soul core. And I knew going into this business that I was never going to do hard news. I'm too emotional for that. I like lifestyle content, personal development content, cultures, creativity. Like that's my type of jazz. So to be honest, King, I was always myself. And it's so interesting because other anchors, they would always say like, how come Chardelle gets to wear that? I want to do that. How come she gets to do that? But to be honest, I truly believe if you are so anchored in your soul core, people just naturally, they might not, see it, but they're going to respect it because you respect yourself. And the importance of developing a growth mindset, you really go within yourself and you realize like life is a journey and it's really like self versus self. And I truly believe the only person who can stop you from succeeding is yourself, but it is a process and we're all here for different reasons and we all have our own journey.
Beautiful. So the way that I describe something to what you're pointing to is edges. Edges meaning these are things within us that make us who we are, that differentiate us from other people. I would argue that in a corporate / business culture or environment like that you and I first met within, a lot of people sand their edges because they want to fit into that organizational culture. They want to be hired. They want to be accepted. They don't want to rock the boat. They want to keep their job because the health benefits are nice and the 401k and all that type of stuff. Are there times, and I'd have to imagine to some degree there are, but even like when you were, let's say, interviewing for that position, are there times in which you may feel this pull to kind of tone it down, sand your edges, not be as much of you, whatever that means? Or even with that job in particular, like day one interview before anything was offered, like I am who I am unapologetically, this is what you get.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. But to be honest, when I don't stay true to myself, that's when I face like the problem. So even when I try to like go into a mold, it's not going to work for me because that's not me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I just really have to respect my soul core. And people always ask me that question because with my company, we do so many things with like corporations and they're like, how are you able just to be able to just like do you in so many spaces? But at the end of the day, and this might be to some people, like everything we see was created by someone. So you have to create yourself, right? So a lot of times we allow ourselves to go into these boxes within our mind and we feel like, where do we belong? But your true job, in my opinion, is to stay true to that soul core. And whoever rocks with it is going to feel your energy. If they don't, it's okay. The world is abundant, but you have to stay true to your inner essence. And if you're willing to do that, other things will just follow.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
Did you have to figure this out along the way, or were these perspectives like cultivated, nurtured, taught to you at a young age?
Combination. I think my family, like, they always told me just be yourself, just stay true to yourself, right? So I kind of grew up in that type of environment, and my family's from the islands. So the Caribbean lifestyle is very different. It's very open. It's very, it's very free. It's like live your life, do all this stuff. So it's like that type of upbringing really shaped me to become the woman that I am today. And then also too, I realized how many people just completely lose their mind in the entertainment business. And I refuse to be that type of person. But it's not just in the entertainment business. I just feel like in general, we can kind of lose our sense of identity. And at the end of the day, what makes you you is you. Like, I can't be you. You can't be me. So you have to stay true to that. Right. And I've been in environments that sometimes, like, people wouldn't get it, and it's okay. And I had to be able to respect that. And I had to respect myself and respect them.
Absolutely. Neil and Wei, we'll start with you, Neil. I'm just curious, like, how you guys relate to some of these ideas of permission to be ourselves, whatever that means. I'm curious, like, if this is a concept you guys have thought about, maybe at a certain point in life, you started thinking about it more. Wei, how's that played out for you, man?
Okay. I think about it all the time, especially doing this line of work in talking to a public audience, even about a topic like professional wrestling pretty frequently. I often think about how I can best represent myself, like in its truest form, when I'm talking to an audience in a very unnatural setting. And I do, like, for the most part, feel like I'm pretty comfortable at it, but there are certainly struggles when you're talking about a bigger topic of, like, I guess being yourself in the workplace. I don't even know if I'm at that level of, like, struggling to be myself. Therefore, like, I'm not achieving the things I want to achieve. For me, it comes more down to, like, confidence and energy. And I'm looking at Chardelle, your website, okay? And you don't just, like, have sort of one discipline attached to your
Oh yeah,
name.
I'm very creative.
You're a news anchor. You're a musician who
Mhm.
with a recorded album. You're
Mhm.
you're a public motivational speaker. You do
Yes.
acting. And the like, even one of these areas I think would exhaust me. But even beyond just having the energy, it's having the confidence to be able to put yourself out there and to be able to say, I am capable of
Ex-
presenting these things.
exactly.
Where does that come from?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you, King. I love arts. I love art, okay? And I love creativity and self-expression. I'm the type of person, like, I'll just go outside and, like, look at the birds or look at the trees or look at the houses. I'm, like, fascinated by the concept of just, like, construction and design and ideas. And I believe everything was created by someone, right? So I've always been, like, a visionary. I've always been into performing arts. But I'll be honest with you, the part that I face the resistance is when it comes to my music, right?
Hmm.
Because my music is so different and it's so authentic, and it's not like, I don't even know what genre it is. It's its own thing. And I create so many different types of music. My album Inward Awakening, there's country, there's Afro beats, there's rock. It's just its own thing, poetry. So part of and this is the thing, life will humble you. Life
Mhm.
will humble you, because for other things, it's like so easy for me to do, like, oh, let's do broadcasting, let's do this, let's do that. But I think the true elevation in life is to go within yourself and do those things that, like, spark your soul core. So even the resistance that I faced, King, towards the music, and I'm still pushing past the discomfort required for expansion of self, it also made me more of a compassionate person
Hmm.
and have more compassion for myself as well, because it's like, wow, you can have something within you that you really want to express. And for whatever reason, whether it's fear, whether it's self doubt, whether it's not fitting in a certain box, you create these mental blocks, right? So part of my soul evolution is to continue to evolve and express myself, especially when it comes to my music, because it's not just the music. It's like you have something within, release it. So regardless, it can be music, it can be an idea, it can be a philosophy, it can be a business. I think one of the most powerful things humans can do is the fear that holds us back, to push past that discomfort and be willing to bring our thoughts into this physical world.
Mm.
It's not easy.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Chardelle, because when we're talking about a topic like a growth mindset, or even just someone appearing to be courageous or confident, bold in the world, I think for those who may struggle with this concept of growth mindset, or might maybe even be skeptical of it, from their perspective, they may think that someone like you doesn't experience the resistance, perhaps. That's just, I've never met a person who isn't full of fear in some sort of way. Absolutely. Or doesn't have insecurities. Yes. So this idea of, it's not just the courage or the audacity or the ego. It's we're acknowledging that there's a ton of resistance in whatever forms they may take. A lot of the work is just figuring out how to work with our own resistance. Exactly. And that gives us the courage or the audacity to do the thing anyway.
Yeah. And you said something to me a couple of years ago. You told me the inside game, right? You mentioned something about the inside game to me. And that's something that I never, ever forgotten, because life is truly an inside game, right? When it comes to this like exploration of self. And because we are all so different, and we are all like, it's interesting because it's like all of us are in our own worlds, in our own mind. And then we have to like coexist, right? So it's like somebody could be looking at this stapler and depending where their mind is, they're thinking something completely different, right? So that's the crazy thing about the human mind. But it's like the resistance, it's also part of the beauty of what makes life, because it's like you're growing through that process. And part of developing a growth mindset is like journeying, in my opinion, through grace, through compassion, allowing yourself to fail. But at the end of the day, you're not really failing, because with a skill, you just keep getting better and better. But the only way to get better at anything is through action. And that's the thing. And that's what a lot of times we're scared of. We're scared of the action. But the way the mind is, wired, the more you do something, whatever that skill is, you will get better and better. Right. So you have the science aspect when it comes to that as well. You have your own journey, you have your own spiritual aspect. Everyone is so different, but the resistance is also part of the beauty.
How, if you've experienced failure in your career, and I'm assuming you have, because everybody has, how have you dealt with it in the past?
Well, in the entertainment business, failure is just the norm, right? And now having my own media company and creating my own art the way that I want to create, with a focus on elevating the human consciousness, you're bringing this concept, into the physical worlds. And a lot of people might not get it. But the thing that I've had to realize is the importance of showing up for myself, right? So for example, like after this conversation, I have to pitch, regardless, right, King? If a client responds or not, I did the best that I can do. And I truly believe with all of us, as long as we do the best that we can do, and that looks different on different days, it's not going to be an everyday thing, that's all we can do. But once you're willing to put that energy out there, you will naturally attract other people who are on similar frequencies. Right. But you have to be comfortable with the no's, with the rejection, with being, putting yourself out there. Like a lot of stuff that I create, sometimes when I look back, I'm like, like I'm like cringing, but it's part of the process. Right. And to be honest, it's like whatever you want to do, if you're not willing to like look back and be like, what did I do? Then, you're not willing to grow. So you have to be comfortable with failure and embrace it.
Neil, are you comfortable with failure, man?
I'm afraid we all have to get comfortable with failure to some degree. Can I say first, Chardelle, it's a pleasure to meet you, and your energy is absolutely infectious. I was about to co-sign on Jordan and Way being kings, and wow, no, I've got it too. So that's amazing.
You actually sound like one, though, from our perspective.
I don't know. It depends. It depends where you are. I think an English person might not think so.
I
The
love your
accents are
accent.
very slightly different. But and I'll also say that it's having got to know Jordan really well over the past few years, it is of no surprise to me at all that the two of you connected in that space and talked. I mean, one of the first things Jordan said to me too was about the inside game first, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And on the subject of resistance, I'm relating to that in a different way. It made me spark backwards somewhat into my teen years, where it just made me think. I was in the closet for quite a while, from, coming of age, 14, 15, to 18, 19, the college years, And I think not being completely true to what you referred to as your soul core, for
Yes.
me then was a damaging time.
I'm telling you.
And even though I have incredibly understanding, liberal, wonderful parents, and by the time I got to college as well, I could say that about my friends as well. There was really no rejection when I came out. And in fact, not much surprise, because a lot of them kind of twigged either
Yeah.
through my manner, maybe, or also perhaps through the fact that I just never dated girls. So it's like, why are you so picky about girls? It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was something I had to get over, get through, and kind of, in the end, creates internal growth. And has always been something that I reflect on when I think, am I being true to myself?
Facts.
Authentic is perhaps a word that's overused sometimes. Jordan and I've had this conversation, but you get my meaning, being true to who you really are.
Yeah.
I really relate to that, particularly as somebody who does have a kind of a 9-to-5 office job. And that is why I fully credit the growth that I've been able to make in recent years. And I'm older than everyone here. So it's never too late.
Yes.
Was to find other outlets. And this is one of them, the post-wrestling network, the podcasting, writing for their website. All of that brings me huge joy, because it's something that I really feel a connection to. So, yes,
That's so
agreed, co-sign on everything you
Yeah.
said.
That's
Chardelle,
so amazing. I love it.
when we're talking about this idea of soul core, however we want to label it, this idea of something that feels more like you, how do you define that? Because I'm thinking back in prior relationships in certain ways, some job roles, etc. Like, in the moment, I'm not necessarily aware that this isn't really who I am. And that's a skill to develop, of having this type of self-awareness and the sensitivity of what's resonating or not. But like, how do you define that? If someone was like, Chardelle, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So when you're talking about like this idea of being you and knowing like, how do you do that? How do you know that?
You know what I do? You have to go beyond the physical of the thing, right? Like, all of this is like physical, but this is just like one layer. And when I mean you have to go so within self, like, it's like you have to strip everything away. Like, when I mean everything, and connect with that inner sense of like self, and you can feel it. Right. And the thing about the soul, in my opinion, the soul has no resistance. Like, when you get to that level, it's just like pure love. Like, I cannot explain it, but it's like something within us. And I think we all have that. Every single person has that, but it takes so much work because we've been so conditioned. Whether it's like culture, environment, jobs, all of these things have conditioned us. But even when I started to really go on this like soul journey, I had to go beyond everything, my environment, my culture, religion, all of these things, and just like, who am I? Just like the soul. Right. And then I started to develop this relationship, and it's like, Jordan, like there's no words to explain it, but it's like we all have that. And every day I know this sounds weird, but I like get in touch with my higher self. Literally. And I'm like, okay, how do you feel, Shar? Okay, I feel this. Da, da, da. It's like I'm like a therapist. But I'm like,
so it's an active conversation with yourself.
It's an active, yeah. It's like an active conversation with self. And I give myself so much compassion. And I give myself so much grace. And however, whatever I'm feeling at the moment or whatever, I just like allow it to like express. And I'm like, see, that's it. That's the thing. It's within you. Right. And you have to like, it's so crazy, but you have to allow yourself to be yourself. It's so deep, but it's so simple too, but it's really, really deep and it requires work. And I think it's like an ongoing process. We're constantly figuring out ourselves because the thing about humans, we're so multi-dimensional. Like all of us are so multifaceted. And the crazy thing is like we're all connected too. So it's like different things influence us and also different things influence us at the moment. All of these things, you know what I'm saying? So it's like connecting with your soul is connecting to a core place within yourself that is not really external influence. It's like your own inner vibration.
Yeah. And that's in large part what I'm pointing toward when I use the term inside game. It's the relationship with ourselves. Literally, how are we relating to ourselves? Which is a very heady topic because it's like, well, who am I? Well, there's, I think one of I only have like one head. So there must just, but yet I'm talking to myself, but who is the actual me in that dialogue? And it's valid to say both are. However, I think it's helpful to realize that there are multiple, ever-evolving aspects of self. For instance,
50%.
For instance, if I'm around my mom, it's only natural that parts of my younger self are going to be more present.
Absolutely.
Because this is the woman that raised me. This is the woman who I was literally dependent on for so many things at the formative years of my life, that when I'm with her, parts of those selves within me are going to be a bit more activated. Similar to maybe if I had a really good friend, but we kind of lost touch, let's say 20 years ago, and now I'm around him again, I'm going to start using some of those same terms or references and just the ways of relating. All that to say, we are very complex, as Chardelle is pointing us toward. And there are multiple selves that are ever evolving. And as we continue to age, I think it's helpful. Part of the inside game is having the self-awareness and the sense of what's more present right now. Maybe the fears in the inner dialogue or what we're feeling in our body. Maybe some of that is some younger self that's a bit more present right now. And maybe when I was 14 or maybe when I was 34, that perspective was actually the most helpful response or way to relate to the thing that's happening right now. And thank you, self, for that. However, present day, things have changed. Maybe that's not the most helpful perspective right now. Maybe that's not the most helpful emotional experience or feeling or judgment to have about what we're confronting present day. This idea of like, thank you, but no thank you. This idea of, and you're sharing that you have cultivated an ability to have compassion for yourself, have patience and understanding, perhaps empathy for certain, perhaps sometimes younger aspects or versions of yourself. And that's key because oftentimes we're getting in our own way. So we respond internally with maybe shame or with maybe anger and frustration or maybe with despair. And all that really does is create more inner friction. So the idea of you being able to literally have dialogue within yourself and being able to access different parts of yourself, allowing, oh shit, there's some fear that's coming up.
Oh yeah,
That doesn't feel good. And typically we like to stay away from that which doesn't feel good. Doesn't mean it's going to just disappear. Though.
Exactly. It
It'll
actually makes
likely
it worse.
right. So like, yeah, it will likely manifest in some sort of way, whether it's more of the emotional experience, maybe in a physical discomfort manifestation of some kind, but your ability to tolerate and trust that which lies within you and being able to relate to it in these certain ways, I think in large part that answers many of the questions I would have about why you are the way you are and why you've done what you've done and will continue to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Was this taught to you, or you've had to figure this out? I know in the earlier you said like a mix of both, but this idea of just, okay, let me talk to myself. Let me talk through this. Let me check in. Like, did someone literally, like a parent, hey, you should do this as a practice, Chardelle?
You know, I've always been really, really spiritual. Like I've always been like very connected with like, and I don't know if it's like my culture or something, but I've just been a very like spiritual person. And I've always looked at things beyond the physical of things. Just like, even since I was like a little girl, I've always been really tapped into that type of stuff. And, you know, it's just like, I can see things beyond the thing. Like I can't explain it, but I just, and I just feel like all of us are so unique. And, you know, it's just like a journey. It's just like a journey. And I think it's like, you know, one of my superpowers, because we all have superpowers. All of us have unique and divine gifts. Right. And just being on this journey of just kind of like self-exploration and encouraging others and truly like, just it's just so beyond powerful. And I'm literally like learning every single day. And it is definitely a journey. It's a journey. And I also am in tune with multiple sides of who I am. Right. So of course I have like the performer side that I love performing, but I also have like the brain side that I love, like, you know, just learning about the mind and psychology and humans. And I have like my spiritual side, and I have like all my fashion looks, you know, because depending on the day I look like a different person, you know, but these are all parts of who I am. And I'm the type of person, I have to express all the sides of who I am. So, you know, one day I can be like that. The next day I can be gothic. The next day I can wear like masculine clothes. It's all part of who I am, you know? And I think the most beautiful thing about going in touch with who you are, you're able to express yourself better because you have knowledge of self. I always say knowledge of self is one of our greatest assets, you know?
So it's one thing to maybe have the mindset and the confidence and the mental game in check in order to accomplish all of these things. How do you get the energy? How do you schedule everything? How do you fit everything that you want to accomplish within your day, and from a practical sense?
Okay. I like to work, right? But I don't feel like I'm working. It's weird. It's weird because it's like I enjoy what I do. Now, I'll be honest with you. The way my mind thinks is very different. Like I'm the type of person, I will learn a skill for 1 year and just like surrender to the process. Just like keep working at it, keep working at it. So I can be a little bit off when it comes to like certain things, like, you know, because you got to know yourself. Because sometimes I'm like, am I all there? You know, but this is the thing. It's like I look at life as play and work together because I've been able to find things that I love to do. So I am willing to put in long hours. Every single thing that I accomplished took thousands of hours to learn the skill, but I truly enjoyed the process. Like I enjoy cultivation of expression, of learning, of, you know, just like, okay, I don't know this, but I'm going to figure it out. But I have to dedicate time every single day to work. That's the thing. Even though I'm a creative and I'm a free spirit, all of these things, I have to dedicate time to actually do these projects and, you know, get my gigs and do my bookings because I need to survive, right? But I embrace the fact of work, and I don't really look at it as work. I look at it as more of like learning. You know what I mean? It's an interesting concept. So even with this music thing, how I'm holding back, I'm like, okay, let me look at it as learning. Let me just keep getting better. Just like keep, doing my performances with my hosting gigs, with my speaking engagements, because then I'm building. Because it's like the mind is like a muscle. The more you work at whatever it is, you just keep getting better and keep getting better.
Now, is that like maybe a main ingredient to developing a growth mindset?
Oh, absolutely.
Curiosity and just sort of an appetite for learning.
Yeah, you have to learn, and you have to like tap into like when you're a child, right? When you're a child or you see children, they like to explore, they like to learn, they like to they just have this inquisitive way of looking at life. I never lost that. I'm always like, for me, it's weird. I don't really watch TV. I don't really watch film, all of these things. I'm like training my mind to, because I want to get better at my craft. But I believe life is the real movie. So I just like to go to the mall and watch people. I'm down the street. I like to watch people. Like I'll go to different, places, different types of communities. I have been around all types of cultures, everything, because the true learning is just seeing people be people. That's how you get the best knowledge, right? So I think a lot of times people forget the importance of exploration, going outside of your box, having conversations with people who are different from you. That's the only way that you're going to learn. And that's the thing about this. And I can get so passionate. The thing I'm realizing about this universe is like the fact that we're all connected and everything is aligned. So even this conversation, I'm learning from you guys. You guys are learning from me. This is not a coincidence. This was part of our mission while we were on this realm. We had to have this conversation. This is how I look at life. Like everything is connected, right? So if you look at life that way, even the things that are hard for you, it's like, okay, but I remember that piece of wisdom. I remember that time period in my life. What did that person say to me? And you will get wisdom, like just every single day, because you're on your own soul mission. It's so deep and it's so beautiful.
Speaking of energy, things like sleep, physical movement, fitness, nutrition, are social stuff. Like, are these things that you are monitoring 100%. On a daily basis?
100%. I make sure I get my sleep. I need to sleep a little bit more. I dance every day. I dance every single day. I have a dance party. That's the crazy thing. Even though I'm like, scared of my music, but I'm getting there. I love music. I put on my music and I go into a trance. Like I'm just like in my own world. I have my own movements, everything. That's a part of my soul care, right? Expressing myself through dance. Nature is huge for me. I spend a lot of time in nature. I love nature. I love the arts. So I like going to museums. I like going to concerts, all of these things. I love having conversations with people, even strangers, because you get to learn, right? You get to learn. Like Neil, when you were speaking to me, I was so like taken back, because I was like, this man is so authentic. Because when you were speaking from here, and I was getting emotional. I was like, because I'm just naturally an emotional person, and I was like, wow. Like even getting emotional now, but I can't explain it, because it's like, I see beyond the physical of things. So it's like, wow, the way that you said that, I was like, look at this king, like, look at he's just like saying this, it's like realness, because what is real can never be threatened. That's another thing. So it's like, what is real can't be threatened. So it's like, when you're realizing this and you're taking it with you, it's such a beautiful thing. And the food is very important too, because the food is an energy. When you're eating low vibrational foods, it's going to affect you. Before this conversation, I went to get a smoothie because I wanted to feel, powered up, because everything is a vibration, everything is a frequency, right? So sometimes even we're like wondering, why are we feeling this way? Because we're entertaining low vibrations. Whether that even the stuff that we watch, the stuff that we listen to, negative energy, self-doubt, all of these things are frequencies. The only thing we're exchanging, in my opinion, really is energy. That's all we're exchanging. So a lot of times when we're feeling a certain way, we have to check in with ourselves. Why are we feeling that? And we could trace it back to some type of low vibration. It's really powerful.
So is this a lens through which you're often perceiving the world, whether it's through the food that you're putting into your body, whether it's media that you're consuming, a song, a movie. It's just this idea of what's the energetic quality of this experience right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of things, like I had to create my own lane with Motivational Moore, because with certain things, even with entertainment, I'm not going to do it. And I know it's art and it's okay and it's self-expression, but you have to know yourself. That's another thing. You have to know yourself, and we're all so different, right? So it's like you have to stay true to that, because at the end of the day, you have to go to sleep and you have to be comfortable with yourself. Right. So it's like everything is just an energy. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It is a frequency and it has some type of reaction. We might not see it automatically, and everybody's different. Some people can do something and it's okay. Like they're not going to feel like, you know what I mean? So you just have to you have to know yourself, everyone is so different.
Hearing you like sort of use that sort of I guess language of defining like the energy of anything that you might experience, to me is like a really interesting way of like constantly checking in with yourself about what you're doing, how it's making you feel, what you're consuming, how it's making you feel, what you're watching, how it's making you feel. And I don't know if we ask ourselves those questions enough with what we encounter in our day-to-day lives. With that said, I'm very curious to know what your relationship is like with social media. Because for a lot of people, it could be the source of both high and very low vibration types of experiences.
Good question. For me, social media is also an outlet, right, of expression, of creativity. But once again, even when it comes to social media, I had to design it my way, right? Because I have to show up how I want to show up. Now, if I feel like sometimes, like you're just like on Instagram or something and you're like, why am I just scrolling? What am I actually doing? What am I getting from this? Then I'm like, okay, Char, I got to log out of this. So I have to check in with myself, right? But also too, King, because I know about human behavior, social media is not real, right? So it's like, it's things that we create at a time based on a frequency that we want to produce out to the physical world for whatever reason. So nothing is wrong with it, but a lot of it is like curated for perfection. And the thing about perfection is a false concept. It does not exist. But this is the thing. When you have awareness, you can see these things. When you're in a low vibrational frequency, it's like, I'll just be scrolling and I don't even realize. So that's another thing. I believe also too, life is what frequency we are on, right? It's not even necessarily like the age or this and that. It's just what frequency you're vibrating, because you're going to see the world differently dependent on the frequency you're on. So if you're in an anchored frequency, you can look at social media and it's fine, right? If you're in a low vibrational frequency and you're feeling of lack of any way, everything, bro, becomes lack. Everything, like, dang, I wish I looked like this. Dang, I wish I had this money. Dang, you're in a low vibration because your mind is in a low vibration. So social media also is, when we're looking at it, it's also a reflection of the state that we're on in our own consciousness.
So what is the key, in your opinion, to finding that anchor?
Good question. With social media or just in general?
Maybe in general. Isn't that the basis of what we're talking about?
Yeah. You know what? You got to stay true to your soul core. You got to stay true to that unapologetically. And you have to be able to respect that. And I do believe when you respect your soul core, everything naturally flows with you 10 times better. When we face resistance, it's because we are not staying true to that.
So for someone who's listening to this and thinking, all that sounds great, Chardelle, I don't really know what my soul core is or what that means. Yeah. What would you offer them as far as beginning a process of discovery?
You have to explore. You have to explore yourself, and you have to explore every interest in yourself. You got to go within, baby, and you have to be ready for that. Now, can everyone do that? That's something that I wonder, because going within yourself takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage. And I don't believe there's one way for anything, right? So even what I'm saying, these are my philosophies, right? Somebody else might disagree, and it's okay. At the end of the day, you have to do what works for you, right? But you have to, in my opinion, you have to explore yourself. Because if you don't explore yourself, you're not going to know who you are.
Yeah.
And that's a process. And some people, and this is crazy, but this is some real talk, right? Some people start exploring themselves and they don't come back. They don't come back because it's like the trauma or whatever is just too intense that they literally do not come back. So I don't have the answer for like saying like, what is the right path? I feel like you have to explore and find your own path.
And therein lies the importance of developing patience, compassion, understanding, ways to relate with ourselves, because it could be very easy to start comparing. Oh, this Chardelle character, she seems to have figured it out. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? But to your point, maybe going within is really scary. There might be certain physical, emotional trauma that you start to confront, getting more real with yourself. Maybe it's the realities of your life that brings a lot of pain or sadness to start noticing these things, accepting that this is the reality of my conditions. A lot of fear for people that are in certain relationships who may be hip to the fact that if I start changing, my partner may be threatened by that, may not like that, or a parent may possibly abandon me or try to make me feel like I shouldn't be doing that. So there are plenty of good reasons why we may feel resistance to this process. And 100%. Again, why it's helpful to start relating to ourselves with this sense of patience, with compassion. For some people, I think it literally is easier to do this stuff than for other people.
You think so? Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, based on the conditions of someone's life and their history and how all of that history and the relationships, how that exists within their psychology, within their body, and so on.
True.
Absolutely.
Like on that note, like what was your upbringing like? You know, what lessons did you get any of this from the people who raised you?
Yes. So growing up, I was born in Dominica, the nature island of the Caribbean, but I came here when I was a toddler, right? So being a Caribbean American, and the thing about Dominica, the population's about 70,000. So it's a very, very like tiny island. But I have to be honest, I have phenomenal parents. Like both of my parents are educators. My parents are very like open-minded type of people. And they had to work a lot, just like most like, immigrant families. And I was old, and I know this sounds crazy, but now when I think about it, as I got older, it makes sense. I was always outside, right? And I was very blessed because my neighborhood that I grew up in, we were all like first generation American, right? So Ariane, my best friend's growing up, her family's from the Philippines. Leticia's, her family's from Mexico. Sara, her family's Jordanian and Palestinian, right? Me, my family's from the Caribbean, right? So, and in my school, it was like all these countries, right? Like first generation Italian, Bulgarian, African. So it's like when you grew up like Muslims, Jewish, it's like all of these, people, different types of people, right? You don't realize, I thought the world was just like this until I went to Baltimore. Right. And when I went to Baltimore, I had a culture shock because it was just, I'm used to diversity in all types of ways, straight, gay, everything. It's like, we just grew up like that. When I go into Baltimore and I realized like, just like people were in like different, I can't explain it. Right. I was like, thank you that I grew up like this. Thank you that I grew up around all this diversity, all these cultures, all these different ways of thinking, because you don't realize at the time, because this is just your norm, the importance of exchange of different people. Because what happens, right? Even if you're different from somebody, but your friend is from this place or this or whatever, you're still friends. So you're able to have an understanding of what, not the physical, but the soul of the person, right? And I was always outside growing up. Like I've always liked to explore in this. So I feel like all of these types of mindset, loving to explore, being around cultures, having open parents, and then also just having the love of art, of self-expression, it allowed me to like see the world in a different lens, right?
Hmm.
So it's very interesting. And I also feel like even though I work in media, the fact that I don't really consume a lot of media like that, but I like that, like just observing life, you look at life differently because you really see what's really going on instead of something produced. So I
So,
feel like all of these things have really helped me.
so I find that really interesting, and it's something I think about often as somebody who works
Yeah.
in the media. Like there are a lot of, I think, I want to say almost like nefarious sort of like decisions being made in the construction of media.
Mhm.
I mean, ultimately, it's a business designed to get people to continue to pay attention or to
Mhm.
spend money. No, hearing you speak, you
Mhm.
seem very aware of like potentially destructive habits of what the media can provide. But as
Mhm.
somebody who produces it,
Mhm.
how do you do that responsibly?
Great question. For me, it's really just empowering people to stay like true to themselves, right? So that's kind of like my whole thing. Because with Motivational More, our focus is on elevating the human consciousness. So creating inspirational content on multiple platforms, right? Because regardless, it's like the media all has their own agenda, right? But it's not just the media, it's just human beings. It's like we get attached to these things in our idea, our head, and we're like, this is the way the world should be, da 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 da. And we're just like, floating, thinking about these things. So for me, it's like, what do I want to create? What are the thoughts, the ideas that I want to bring into this physical world? And that's why the exploration of self is very important. So going within myself, I had to really ask myself, like, what is truly important to you? What are the values that's important? Kindness, that's very important to me. Self-love, encouragement, right? Even though my company is called Motivational More, I'm more focusing on encouraging than actual like motivation, right? Because I feel like encouragement goes such a profound way, right? So these are some of our services. We do music, TV and film, speech, corporate MC, the products, advertising, all these stuff. And our clients are very like inspirational, different types of brands, nonprofits, organizations, universities, anything dealing with diversity and inclusion, anything dealing with positivity. That's kind of like who buys into Motivational More, which is amazing. But I had to be really not only just strategic, but know who I am, right? And that's really important when it comes to, even working with brands and businesses. Who do you want to align yourself with? And I think a lot of times with media or just people in general, like we don't realize like the world is abundant and you will never be for everyone. So what's your thing? Do your thing and do your thing to your best abilities, and there'll be other people who are aligned with that.
Which from a technical like marketing perspective, it's kind of 101, like know your audience.
Know your audience. Know your
and,
audience.
And serve them specifically.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'm kind of, this is where I am in my head, and I don't know where it will take me. I just want to reflect this idea of, I'm big into language. I like
yes,
understanding.
And you're really good with language too.
Thank you.
Like, even when you speak, it's like a poet.
Appreciate that, especially coming from you. I'm fascinated by etymology. I'll use a phrase that's just common speak and be like, oh, where did that come from? And then look it up. So you're talking about motivation, but encouragement is maybe resonating in a more true way. Mm-hmm. And as I start thinking about, well, what's the difference between the two? Like the word courage is literally within encouragement. And maybe encouragement and even just being oriented more from that perspective instead of trying to motivate someone.
Absolutely.
Encouragement, I think, takes into account the resistance, the fear, the thing that's holding the person back. So what you may be doing is helping them to develop more courageousness or courage within themselves despite the resistance.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure, we could look up what's the definition of motivation, but I'm not sure if motivation takes that into account.
Yeah, and motivation is temporary, right?
Mm.
So everything is a vibration, everything is a frequency. It's like hype, right? So like even with hype, like even when I'm listening to like super, super hype music, and don't get me wrong, we need all of these energies. We need all of it. Eventually, if you look at anything with hype, whether it's sports, right? Whether it's, I'm trying to think of things that take a lot of energy. It doesn't matter, right? Eventually,
Wrestling.
You said what?
Pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling, okay? Perfect example. Eventually, the person is going to have to retire. You know why? Because there's only so much physically that you can do with your body in hype. That's reality. Doesn't matter what the thing is. You're going to have to come down. It's just reality. Now, wisdom, patience, simplicity, and this is things that I've learned in my journey of life. These things will take you farther. Not saying hype is bad because you need it, but in the long game, there's reasons why 90-year-olds, 100-year-olds are like, they have a certain level of grace, right? Because grace is a frequency. It's like you're moving, you might be moving slower, but it will take you farther in the long run in that frequency. There's no one who can play, who's going to be doing professional wrestling at 100 years old yet. Not saying it can't happen. Not saying it can't
Ric Flair
happen.
is still alive.
Yes, yeah. But to like physically do it. But if you notice, right, you might even have an author who's 100 years old and still writes because it's a different frequency. And that's the thing about life that is just so amazing. It's like, oh my gosh, there's all these different types of frequencies, but there's a power, in grace. Right? There's a power in kindness and encouragement. It's like even you, King Neil, when you were speaking, you have that thing. You know what I'm saying? He has it because he's like, it's a frequency. Things are frequencies. So even with me, I'm a very naturally energetic, vibrant person. Naturally, this is just a part of me. But I'm realizing the importance of Shara. Sometimes you gotta like.
What really struck me there, just a little bit way back, was when you spoke about your childhood after coming to the States. And I was just thinking, what a blessed time for you to be immersed in so many other kids with so many different backgrounds, different religions, different ways of looking at the world.
Such a blessing.
I didn't have that as a kid. Ireland is a wee bit more monocultural, unfortunately. And I think that also goes to where we talked about social media. One of the really, it's good and bad. I think we can agree on that. I think some of the more text-based stuff on X and so on can be a little more toxic. You know, you're getting a lot of disagreement, a lot of people being negative and so on. And I have withdrawn from that platform quite a bit. But one of the great wonders of technology is this ability to connect with people who are maybe thousands of miles away. So I'm here and I've got my little group of friends that I may have had from school and so on. But I'm getting to learn all the time and experience through others what it is to connect with people who had a very different childhood than I did, have a very different day-to-day life these days than I do. And I think that's another point of just growth in all of this.
Exactly.
I also wanted to sort of rewind a little bit to when Jordan said, well, okay, the soul core, what is that? How do you get to that? You know, and I think my experience has been that, like you said, Chardelle, it takes experimentation almost. You got to go within and you've got to try out stuff, you know. And I've tried things when at school there was a particular sort of set of people who were quite religious in their kind of, and I mean in a kind of dogmatic way. Here's what you must believe. Here is, you know, chapter this, verse that in the Bible and so on. And that never really resonated and worked for me, that kind of very traditional type of prayer. But for some people, I think that is how their soul connects is through prayer. And good luck to them. I think that works very well for them. For me, I find when I feel most connected to what I'll describe as my soul, sort of true being, whatever you want to call it, yourself, yourself with a capital S, is probably in meditation. And that seems to be what works for me. Although I do, and Jordan's input here would be helpful too, I think, because I know this is something he advocates for. Feel resistance sometimes in doing it. I feel like I don't do it as much as I should. You spoke to doing some version of connecting within every day. That to me feels like a big ask. So I'm interested to know what you, Jordan, or you, Chardelle, think about that.
If I may, just this idea of quote unquote meditation, or this idea of connecting with self, from my perspective, it as a daily practice doesn't feel overwhelming, because one way in which I could define doing both of those things at once is by literally taking one intentional breath. Like I could achieve connection with capital S self and a meditation within a couple seconds of let me take a breath, but with more intentionality, where I'm tuning in and to becoming as present as I'm able to. And with whatever distraction or judgment may appear in mind, let me just simply witness that, let it go, and then return back to the breath. So I think you can achieve that within seconds. Now, obviously, and I'd also argue, I'd rather do that, or I'd rather someone practice that very small increments on a daily basis than, once a week, I feel inspired to do it for 10 minutes. Or, I can actually sit down and do like a structured 30-minute meditation, but realistically, that's like every few months. I think the consistency is key with stuff like this. And we spoke about this at this point years ago, reading that book and exploring Atomic Habits together. This idea of what's the smallest viable win that we can set up for ourselves easily just to engage with the thing that we're intending to do. And can we do that with some sense of consistency? If I can, Chardelle, I want to ask, and I realize I'm pivoting elsewhere. This is not a pro wrestling show, but the Wellness Policy is a show that is part of a pro wrestling network. And we are speaking to, I'd imagine, 100% of an audience that are interested in pro wrestling. So once upon a time, you were employed by a news station who also owned a pro wrestling company, that being Ring of Honor. I know, like, toward the end, I came in with one of our champions, and they were interviewed by you on your lifestyle show that you had at the time. But I'd have to imagine you engaged with Ring of Honor a decent amount, yes?
Not really. We had some, not really. I'm like, now when I think about it, maybe because I remember that interview, and then also we probably did maybe 2 interviews.
Okay.
But no, I didn't work with them all the time.
Because some of the station personalities did, like Rest of Soul, Traffic Jam Jimmy.
Traffic Jam Jimmy, Candace. I think they did more stuff with them.
Yeah, and even Jimmy was in the ring at one of the shows I was at.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, prior to Ring of Honor being housed in the same building you were working, did you have any understanding or concept of what pro wrestling was? And then with Ring of Honor being within the same walls where you worked each day, did you learn anything?
Well, one thing I wanted to do, I actually wanted to learn wrestling. See, that's the type of I'm the type of person, I don't really like watching things. I like to perform, do the action. So I remember I asked I was maybe one of these days we could do like some type of like, you know, like one of the wrestlers, especially one of the female wrestlers could like show me like a couple of their moves and stuff, because, you know, that would be fun. Like that would be something like different to do. And I'm always about like exploring. But one of the things that I just like, just being around that energy, you know what I mean? The times that I've been, I noticed like wrestling has so much to do with discipline and also confidence, because it's like you're bringing like two components together. You're bringing like entertainment, but at the same time, like sports and like hard work and training. And I'm like, this is like a whole world. It's a whole culture. You know what I'm saying? So it's just so amazing to see the fact that like, to see these, and I would also call them artists, because to be able to move like that, that is like an art in itself, you know? So I have a question for you guys, just being in that space. What do you think it really takes to succeed when it comes to being a phenomenal wrestler? Because I feel like it's way more than the athletic abilities.
Well, I was thinking a lot of what you were talking about understanding yourself. Or at the very least understanding your character, but so much of that, so much of the best characters, I mean, it's almost cliche at this point, but so much of the best characters are just extensions of who the people actually are, turned to, you know, 11. So I would say very much of what you're talking about. I mean, I think wrestling, because it's so competitive,
Yes.
especially like the type of wrestling that we watch, that's, you know, at sort of like, you know, it's on national TV. These are like billion-dollar corporations at this point. And so much money is involved. It's going to reward the people who are the most competitive, the people who are the most talented, the people who are the most gifted, and the people who know themselves the best and have a sense of belief in themselves that I don't think you will typically see in most of the world. So I would imagine you probably, a lot of what, at least what you're talking about, is probably shared with some of the best people in the field, I have to think.
Wow.
To that, I would add, the best pro wrestlers are the best emotional storytellers. The performing artists and athletes that understand the point of what I'm doing with my colleagues here is to make people feel something, to have some sort of emotional response, to elicit some sort of feeling within the audience member. And Chardelle, you're wonderful at that, given that you are a performing artist in many different disciplines. I know for a fact that your name would come up more than a few times within the Ring of Honor office as someone who we should reach out to, who could be a backstage interviewer, or someone that could have some sort of presence on our TV.
I like where this energy is going.
Especially prior to me joining, because this is the 2012, 2013, most, if not all, of the Ring of Honor TV at that time was taped in Baltimore on a monthly basis. I don't know why it never came up. I was someone who was certainly advocating for you, which is why we brought one of our champions to be interviewed, or why I brought one of our champions to be interviewed by you a week before the Madison Square Garden show. But to me, it just seems so obvious. Like, Chardelle is already a quote unquote employee. She's already physically in this building. Why not? And I can't give you the answer as to why not. How do you think you would have responded if someone would have come up to you and been like, "Hey, Chardelle, like, you want to be on the wrestling show?"
Oh, I would love to do it. But this is the thing. I think it's going to happen because this is the thing. My life is just energy, right? So I'm on this podcast. I know it's going to open up something, because once you have tapped into energy, you realize energy just keeps going. So there's going to be something that I eventually do in that space, whether it's like an interview, whether it's, who knows, maybe a fight one day. I don't know, a match. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty athletic. Like, of course I would have to learn, but like, you know, even the costumes alone, the costumes and like the athletic ability. So I'm just being open to this energy, because remember, I told you, remember this, what is it? It's 2/13, 6/18, 2024. This energy is going to lead to something, because that's how energy is. So we'll see what the universe like aligns me in the wrestling space, but I'm going to do something. Even if it's like a one-time thing, I'm going to do something, because I've already done it and the energy just keeps going. That's how life is. So
Well, I want to open up the phone lines so that we can perhaps experience some of the energies from the people that might be paying attention to us right now. And we have one phone call already in wait, and that comes to us from Corey. Welcome, Corey, to the show.
Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well.
Hi,
Hey, Corey.
Corey.
Hello. So yeah, I was just listening in on everything y'all have been saying, a lot about like accumulated life experiences and just informing who we are, the inner voice of doubt that comes nagging because of those previous experiences. So I'm a person who has who has really been traditionally like risk averse throughout my life, and I think that has been sort of to my detriment in a lot of places. And over the last couple of years, I've been really trying, and I've been working with my therapist on this to really kind of become a little less risk averse, be a little less afraid of failure. Failure is probably my biggest fear as far as like just anything. Just the ability to set back my life in some kind of significant way has always been something that has like traumatized me throughout the years. And I think because of that, it's led to a lot of stagnation in a lot of the way my life has operated, whether it's just simply like, passions of mine, music, fashion, or, professionally taking a risk on a maybe potentially better job at a slightly more, let's say, unstable company. So, these are all things I've juggled around. Also, other things like, it took me a very long time to move out, longer than a lot of my other friends. And that was something that, because I felt like I had to get my income in order because I wanted some kind of financial umbrella. And so it was a lot of things where this combination of FOMO and fear of failure, all these things like really, it finally reached a point where I had to look at myself and I had to identify why these things were happening. And, I like to think of myself as a fairly introspective person. I spent a lot of time as a kid by myself, just thinking about myself. But I think, especially when it came to therapy and being able to really like have a second voice, kind of take a look at everything I'm saying and put it under the microscope. That was really a point where I thought this is where the growth happens. Yes. And I like to think that in the last couple of years, I've really changed in that regard. I like to think I know when these mental lockups happen, what's informed them, how I can move past them. And I've been starting lately to really, reach for things that I've myself wanted to do for a very long time. I've called on here a couple of times. I've been a very active participant in music subculture. It's a big part of my life. I spent my adolescence, my teenage years, and my early 20s going to the various amounts of like hardcore punk shows, metal shows, etc. Lifelong lover of music. It's all I do is listen to music, think about music, and I love the sort of curation and sort of taste making is such a gauche term. I don't really like it, but I miss an era where like a record label meant a certain kind of quality, a specific type of music. And so I finally decided to go out of my way and one, start a record label, and two, start booking concerts again for the first time in a very long time. And that's been, I know a lot of people who have started distros and labels, and, they all the logistics associated with it are a bit of a pain, especially when you're dealing with touring musicians who don't have a constant access to their email. I'm sitting on a couple emails that I need to get back to people. I'm getting quotes about CDs. I'm putting, this is all my own money. I'm expecting to put a bunch of money into a pile and like pour kerosene on it and burn it. Like, this is a passion project. This isn't something I'm trying to make money off of, but it is something that for a very long time I had thought about and simply, kind of shoved it into a corner because of the associated stresses with it. The associated stresses with booking a show, the idea that I need to have people just like looking and making sure that people aren't just like beating the ever-loving crap, beating each other within an inch of their life. You could, if you want to get rowdy, do whatever you want. But, it's, having to deal with just, some idiots at a show, all of these things, I'm reintroducing a bunch of stress into my life, but it's one of those things where like, if I don't reintroduce this stressor, these sort of risks, I can't necessarily grow.
Exactly.
And I've felt that stagnation for so long, and I just don't want to, I don't want to get to that state anymore. I like being comfortable, but I don't necessarily like being, I don't know what the right word for it is, lethargic from it, but that's where I'm currently at right now with everything that's been going on with me, and I've just, I need to numb myself. Maybe numbing is also not the right word, to the because failure is always going to happen. There's always going to be things that don't pan out. People might not buy a record. People might not come to a show. A job interview might not work out. But I need to build up that muscle memory, that sort of that skill of bouncing back, and that's been my one big thing that I've been trying to develop, is the ability to bounce back from setback. And that is where I think a lot of my own personal and professional growth will stem from.
That's amazing. Yeah. But you know what, like, just is phenomenal about you is the fact that you even have this awareness, because most people don't even have the awareness, right? So the fact that you can actually go within yourself and you're like, these are the things that I want to work on. This is who I am. That's beautiful, because that's a beautiful thing. And you're going to just continue to elevate because you have the knowledge and you're actually doing the work. That's the magic. You're actually, going to your therapist, you're creating the creations that you want. You have a record label, you're doing these things. Even the fear is there, but you're still going. So having that type of mindset, Corey, the sky's the limit. Like literally the sky's the limit.
What I'll add, sorry, Corey, the fact that you're showing up in this courageous way, in this public platform, speaking this, you're doing it already. Exactly. You're doing the thing that parts of you have been resisting. You're making it more realized by speaking it into existence right now. A lot of it just depends on how you define or look at quote unquote failure. So for instance, when I was a bit younger and didn't have a fiance and I was dating, like, a lot of rejection experience. But what I learned was, like, I could be at a restaurant and see some woman, and just for whatever reason, I'm attracted to that person. And I could go up most of the time and, in as respectful as a way as I could, just say, like, hey, I noticed you. I'm interested. If you are, would love to take you out sometime. And oftentimes I would get a no. I was rejected, like capital R, rejected. However, I left feeling so much more fucking confidence.
Hey.
Because I spoke for my desire. I spoke up for my desire. And in doing so, I was loving myself. Again, I'm trying to do it through the lens of, I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. But this is a pure desire that I'm feeling right now. What a loving thing to do for me to try to do something about that desire. And even in the face of flat out rejection, I ended up feeling more confident to do it the next time.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, rejection was actually a win.
Yeah.
But it was up to me to choose to look at it that way. And we all have that power. Not easy, but it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the time I spent living at home out after college, not having necessarily what I considered the financial means to live on my own in a comfortable way. What did I do during that time? I mean, obviously I worked, but I also still went to these shows and still hung out with people and still made these connections. These are people who now I'm going to be putting out their music. These accumulated years of experiences. You were talking, Chardelle, about the sort of multifaceted nature of us as people. There is, you with your family, you in one setting, you in another. I've spent my life in many different spaces, in terms of music, the metal space, the electronic music space, the punk space. And then even outside of that, in fashion circles, also all these people I've met over the years in just various different circumstances, they've all I've been able to parlay all of that into what I'm doing right now. So I can talk about failure. I can talk about where I maybe wish I was in compared to where I am now, but I can't obviously put a capital F failure on it, because the fact of the matter is that these accumulated experiences and connections with people I've made, I've been able to parlay into something I genuinely care about.
Exactly.
It just, failure is a nebulous term. The way I assign failure to myself will change from day to day. There are, maybe bigger picture things that I wish I had, like a home, a home that I own, things like that. But, I'm taking it one step at a time. It's the only thing I can do. But I think I'd like to think, and I do think, that I'm at least proud of where I am right now with this little project of mine that I've been wanting to do for so long.
This amazing project.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the call and for sharing, Corey.
Yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
Inspired, Corey. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Well done, buddy.
Yes. I needed that. I'm so happy I came on this podcast.
It's great.
And we're ecstatic that you decided to come on too. It's been a wonderful pleasure getting to know you, Chardelle. If people want to know more about you, where could they find you?
So I'm on social media, everything at Chardelle Moore, as well as Motivational Moore is on Instagram as well. And I had a pleasure. I had a wonderful, wonderful vibe with you guys. So thank you guys so much. After this, I'm gonna lock in a little bit with the wisdom and stuff that I learned. That's another thing that I do. After a great experience, I kind of like to soak it in and feel that, because it's that this experience will never happen exactly like this ever again. You know what I'm saying? So I treasure these things in life. So thank you guys so much for having me on this amazing podcast. And this conversation was really important. And I truly believe somebody out there was you know what? Had a message that they could relate to and apply in their life. And that's what it's all about as human beings, for us to get this thing together and just, do our part to make this world a better place.
I trust that too. And I think in large part because of you, Chardelle. Thank you. We love you. I just want to finish with this, with music, because you've been talking about that's one area in life in which you've been feeling some resistance. What's the soul dream with your music? What are we making?
Woo! Okay. I want to just have no fear when it comes to the music and create how I want to create. That's all. Wherever it goes, it just goes. But I just don't want to have any resistance when it comes to my own art. And it bothers me that I have resistance towards it, but it also humbles me, and it also makes me want to continue to get better and to learn. And that's the beauty about life. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like, but at the same time, it's like, yes, let's do this. And I just truly just want to continue the evolution of self-expression and use music as a tool to empower myself and to empower others. But yeah,
Beautiful.
freedom. I just want to create the way I want to create.
Mm.
So I
Well,
just
you
gotta
have
just do it.
you have
I'm
a
doing
community.
it.
You are, and you have a community. This niche pro wrestling / wellness community that is here to back you and encourage
Aw,
you. Whatever it feels true musically to be expressed, we're here for it.
Thank you.
Check out Chardelle's album on all streaming platforms. Right?
Yes, Inward Awakening. It's a multi-genre collection. Okay. So every song is different. Wild Wild Ride, it's like a country blues song. It's talking about the dualities of the human experience. Fearless is like a rock spoken word type of thing. Inner Gangsta is a hip hop track. Self-Love is a Beautiful Journey talks about, self-love is a beautiful journey. It's like an Afrobeats hip hop fusion. Africa Inside of Us, it's very interesting. It's like a hip hop rock vibe. Glow is more like poppy. And You to Plug is more of like a deep spoken word. So my music is a reflection of just me. So I'm very multifaceted, and my music is a reflection of that. But I am going to own this frequency, especially this summer. I'm like going to just face my fears and like start just performing more and start creating the way that I want to create. So
looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Cool. So you can find all of that at ChardellMoore.com, all her
Yes.
socials and everything. That seems to be the hub where you can find everything.
Yes.
We have an idea of what we might be coming back next month to talk about on the wellness policy, but it's unconfirmed yet. So stay tuned. Join us at the Discord, postwrestling.com/Discord. If you have any feedback for this episode, if you want to suggest topics for future editions of the show, if you want us to relay a message to Chardelle, perhaps, do it through postwrestling.com/Discord. That's the best way to get a hold of us. Thank you, all of you guys, Chardelle, Neil, and Jordan. Neil and Jordan, do you guys have anything you want to talk about or plug or whatever?
Chardelle, can you show us that stapler one more time, please?
Yes.
There it is. Chardelle and her stapler. YouTube.com/postwrestling.
Take care, everybody. See you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.